Remember those old Rankin and Bass films that would air on television during the holiday seasons? Well, it turns out that there is a lost film that was created by the two animators and is believed to predate the original Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer film. The footage itself was said to have been discovered in an abandoned storage unit in Hollywood, which also contained rare stock footage and movie stills from the other well-known Rankin Bass films. The Super 8 canister was labeled Reindeer, so it was automatically believed to be the original footage taken of Rudolph's famed movie. Knowing that this could be a major artifact in the world of Rankin Bass Productions, the person who discovered it kept it for themselves, along with a Super 8 projector. The individual, who I will keep anonymous for reasons I will explain later, viewed the footage while he or she took notes on every aspect. The following account is a combination of all notes details made by the film. The film begins with the opening title screen in the original Rudolph footage. The Blizzard Gusts etch out the names of those who were most noted for creating the film, including Rankin and Bass. But one detail that I have noticed, which is especially strange for a holiday film, is that there is no audio whatsoever. Not even the sound of the gales could be heard, let alone the holiday music which sets the mood. When the wind was near the moment of unveiling the title, I already came to the conclusion that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was about to appear. But as the wind blew away the snow, the title Randolph the Reindeer appeared instead of the trademark look of the title that we fans have all come to know. The title appeared in dull block-shaped letters. I then knew at this point that I was viewing an entirely different film, but I pressed on, thinking that it was some sort of prototype version of the original Rudolph film, and that it was never finished, or something. The snowy winds blew away to reveal an older reindeer who I assumed to be Randolph. But the most unnerving detail about him is that his fur was completely black, instead of the brownish hue given to him in the original film. We see him casually walking through the snow-covered forest, showing no expression on his face. He continues to walk until he runs into two other reindeer, one of them looking similar to Fireball. One strange detail besides the reindeer being completely black is that there is no audio of the characters talking to one another. Only the sound of grainy footage can be heard, increasing the terrifying nature of the film. The two reindeers seem to be mocking Randolph, one of few similar traits to the original film. You can clearly see the two characters laughing at him, showing more hatred with every giggle. A zoom on Randolph's face shows the pure anger he has toward the reindeer. His pupils were red and his eyes were bloodshot. The screen then changes to real-life footage of two reindeer brawling with each other, clashing their antlers at each other. At this point, I knew that this film was made by someone other than Rankin and Bass. These details, along with the others, doesn't add up to be a jolly holiday film, but possibly a spin-off of the original Rudolph film. The footage of the two reindeer fighting lasted for 2 minutes. The screen then flips back to the puppet sequence. The mangled body of Fireball is shown full blown, causing me to gasp in both terror and shock. He lay there in the blood-stained snow, his antlers laying beside him. The image stayed for this for a minute until it changed to a next scene. It was then that I came to the shocking conclusion that Randolph had viciously mauled the first reindeer, while the second reindeer fled away in terror. The next scene shows Santa's castle, which is done in black and gray colors instead of the well-known pinkish shades. The screen then fades out to Santa and Mrs. Claus in the dining room area. Both of them were wearing black-colored versions of their original outfits. Santa's being the trousers and suspenders, and Mrs. Claus with her dress and apron. At this point, audio returns to the footage, and we can hear them arguing about Christmas-related problems. Mrs. Claus spoke out with an irritable tone, as if she was angry with Santa about something. Santa's responses came out in a depressed manner, dragging out some of the words in a gloomy fashion. The audio is once again lost, and the quality of the footage goes from mediocre to absolute crap. The scene stays on Santa and Mrs. Claus, but the two puppets seem to be not animated in the footage. It looked like as if the animators were just holding the puppets. In some frames, the fingers or hands of the animators can be seen for a split second. The screen goes to Randolph strolling through the forest, but in the opposite direction as opposite to the beginning of the film. Blood could be seen trickling off of his antlers as he leaves bloody hoof tracks in his gauge. The scene seems to be repeating itself as if the same footage was used over and over and over again until the scene changes. But one thing I've noticed is that there is no sign of any forest critters from the original film. Rabbits, seals, raccoons, and even birds cannot be seen. It wasn't until a few seconds later into the sequence when I noticed something lying on snow, and as Randolph continues walking, as he walks by the carcasses of the birds, rabbits, raccoons lying in the snow beside him. The most disturbing detail is that the bodies appear to have been eaten by something other than an animal. Randolph continues to walk, not stopping even once to notice the bodies beside him. But before the scene changes, I notice something lying next to the last body of the screen. I rewound the footage and I nearly vomited. Lying next to the carcass of the rabbit was a knife and a fork, both covered in crimson red blood. The screen fades out of the elf workshop filled with busy elves building toys. A faint bell can be heard and the elves begin to exit the room. We see Hermie about to stand up, but he is immediately insulted by the head elf. He begins screaming at Hermie, but the audio is gone again, so all you can make out is the two characters mouthing words. One strange aspect about the head elf is that he looks more primitive, with a shaggy beard and tattered clothes. Hermie sported worn clothing as well, and both characters seem to have large scars on their cheeks and hands. At first, I was confused about this detail, thinking that they were errors on the sculptures. But then I came to the conclusion that sent shivers down my spine. Santa has forced the elves to work non-stop on the toys, and any disobedient elves would be whipped. The head elf finished his conversation with Hermie, and he walked out of the workshop. Hermie is now alone, a single light shining above his head. For a few seconds, he simply stares at the toy train he had been working on before. He then reaches over and grabs a mallet and proceeds to strike the train repeatedly. The screen stays on Hermie as he smashes the train in an emotionless manner. The camera then zooms on the toy, which is now reduced to a pile of wooden splinters. Then the scene fades out. We now see Randolph sitting in his cave next to a cardboard box. He simply stares at the opposite wall for a good 5 minutes, blinking. There is no sign of his parents. I can only expect something bad to happen, seeing the nature of this film. I then froze in front of the screen when Randolph picks up a revolver from the box. He slowly puts the gun underneath his chin and pulls back the hammer. However, the scene changes before he can pull the trigger. A title card appears on screen stating 4 months later, and we see a large group of elves and reindeer. All elves were wearing black elf uniforms, and we see a coffin in front of the crowd containing Randolph. The most eerie aspect about him is that he shows no signs of composition, as if he died the day before. The line of elves began to line up, and they began to say their farewells to Randolph. After a few elves pass by, a female reindeer comes up to the coffin and places a blood-soaked antler next to his casket. I assume that she was Fireball's mother, who still grieves over the death of her son. Santa and Mrs. Claus come next, then they head off, leaving Hermie for last. Hermie steps up to the coffin and he begins to say farewell. Near the end of his statement, audio returns again to the film, and then he bends over to the casket and whispers, "There's a storm coming," into Randolph's ear before walking away. The last seconds of the scene shows a zoom on Randolph's face, which still has a massive bullet hole in his head from where the bullet exited. Then the film ends. Authorities later found the person in his or her home who had apparently gone mentally ill upon watching the movie. In addition, the phrase, "there's a storm coming," was found written in blood in several walls in the house, and the body of a raccoon was discovered in the vigil's bedroom. The actual film itself mysteriously disappeared after its first viewing. To this day, the authorities and psychologists are unsure what caused the person's symptoms, or more importantly, why. I have a single warning for all those who are reading this. If you happen to find a copy or find the real film itself, do not, in any circumstances, watch it in hopes to save anyone else from viewing it. As for now, we can only hope that the film is never discovered again. If it is found, however, I can only hope that the individual who has read this warning beforehand will destroy the film out of fear and safety, or at least give it to the authorities. But if you choose not to heed my warning, and, well, just don't. It is your choice after all. Although I should mention this before anything bad happens, or, there have been rumors that started to spread that the Lost Rankin and Bass film causes viewers to go insane upon watching it. So, again, it is your choice. If you don't listen to my warning, then I'm afraid to say that it's already too late for you.